A priest and a politician arrived at the pearly gates. The pearly gates are the entrance to heaven. Just in case, I wasn't sure, you look like you were a little confused, all right? Okay. Want to make sure you're keeping up with it.
Her confusion is that there was a politician there.
We arrive at the pearly gates. St. Peter processes all the paperwork. He says, okay, now I'm going to take you to where you're going to be spending the rest of eternity. So he walks the two of them together, and they stop at a single room with nothing but a bed and a table and a chair in it. And he tells the priest, this is where you will be staying. The politician got nervous. Gosh, that's the priest. God, imagine what I'm going to get. So the priest behind St. Peter walks the politician down the road a bit, and he stops in front of this beautiful, gorgeous, huge mansion. Landscape yard, pool in the backyard, servants running around everywhere. And he looks at the politician and says, this is where you'll be spending eternity. The politician said, St. Peter, I don't want to be ungrateful, but there must be some mistake. That this holy man, he just gets a single room and a bed and a table and a chair, and I get this mansion. There must be something wrong. And St. Peter said, you have to understand how things are up here. We get lots of priests and ministers all the time, but you're the first politician to me. All right, you're almost stole my life.
Sorry, I almost blew it right there.
All right. And if somewhere here you asked some questions that we had, and if you could look through this mess that I made and see if you can find the questions, I'll go ahead and cover the political part here. And I won't keep you too long, but everybody really wants to have some fun here tonight. So, first of all, what is the number one issue facing Republicans in Nevada this year? The number one issue is them now. Not enough voters.
Election integrity.
Yes. Election integrity. Election
integrity.
Election integrity.
Border.
The border, immigration.
Election integrity.
We're the minority. They have a super majority.
True.
You're. See, you guys know each other. You're still on. I don't even have to do this. You're absolutely right, though. Not abortion, not immigration, not inflation. The number one issue for Nevada Republicans this year is getting elected. Period. This is no time, and I am as conservative as you'll get. This election cycle is not the time for political purity tests.
Right on.
As you mentioned, we've got a Republican governor who was forced to set the record for the most number of vetoes ever issued in a single session. 75 vetoes. That's how far left the Democrats in the legislature are. Republicans in the state assembly are one vote in the super minority. So they've got more than the 2/3 votes that the Democrats need to pass tax hikes, or, a lot of people don't know this, 46 of those vetoes come up again a year from now in the 2025 session, and they can be overridden if the Democrats get a supermajority in the Assembly and the Senate. Now, I'll give you the bad news first. We're stuck. I almost said a bad word in front of Republican women here. We're in really bad shape in the Senate. There are 3 Republican seats that are competitive. Scott Hammond's seat, Republicans should hold. If we lose one of the other 2, we're going to be in the superminority in the Senate. The one we're almost, I'm not going to say almost surely going to lose, but we don't even have a candidate yet for the Senate seat that Heidi Gantzer currently holds up in Washoe County. We don't even have a candidate yet. And the Democrats redrew the lines after redistricting, after the census, so bad that that seat's almost impossible. Heidi Gantzer may have been the only Republican that could hold that seat. Always hope for miracles, never say never, but there's a real good chance we lose that seat. And Kerry Buck down in Henderson, Senator Kerry Buck, is not going to have an easy time of it either. That's a swing seat. It can go either way. But she's got a primary opponent who's already put up over $200,000. And he's a California transplant. Are there any California transplant? There's two different kinds of Californians. There's the California refugees who escaped Gavin Newsom and all the things. And then the problem ones are the California missionaries who are bringing all of their bad ideas to Nevada and trying to change our culture. So do we have any California missionaries here? Because the door's now open. That's a great time. You know, if anybody else comes in late, you guys got it. If anybody else comes in late, when they do, I'm going to stop talking to everybody. Just start applauding. So that's the bad news. We could very easily end up in a superminority in the Senate. The good news is we only need to pick up one seat in the Assembly, and the Assembly Republicans can get out of the superminority, protect the governor's veto, and block any tax increases. Now, the better news is, bless you. Did you cough or bless or sneeze? Just sneeze, I said bless you. If cough, I guess you're not supposed to do that, all right? Okay. The Assembly, well, let me start with Governor Lombardo. I've been doing politics in the state for over 25 years now. It's the first time that I've seen a Republican governor actually take an interest in helping candidates down ballot, I mean an active interest, down ballot to try to get more Republicans elected. He has formed what, for comparison purposes, is basically the Republican version of the Reid machine. He's got campaign professionals who know what they're doing. They've been vetting candidates, they've been recruiting candidates, they've given candidates money already, and they're going to be spending a lot more money to help them get elected. He started endorsing Assembly candidates, I think it was last September, maybe the first one was August, but at least September, endorsing candidates very, very early, getting behind them. I've been retained by one of the governor's super PACs to train candidates, and that's been ongoing since December. We're meeting every week covering different aspects of a campaign. That's the good news. Oh, even better news. The Assembly Republican Caucus, which is in the superminority, this is the gang that can't shoot straight. Unfortunately, these people generally tend to be clueless when it comes to elections, especially when it comes to elections in Clark County. Most of the Republicans, no surprise, are representing rural or northern Nevada districts. Clark County is where all the missionaries moved. Too many of them in Washoe County, but most of them moved to Clark County, and that's where our biggest problem is. But the Assembly Republican Caucus today finally officially endorsed all 6 of the candidates that the governor has endorsed that are running for the Assembly. So we're all rowing in the same direction. Now, as you get candidates who are going to come before you in the primary and to the general election, I would ask you to do one thing for me, because most of the candidates, they're going to come in, they're going to, oh my God, I guess that's all we need. Okay. Most of them are going to come in here and they're going to tell you, they need the training, by the way, so if you get a candidate that comes in, you send them to campaigndoctor.com, have them sign up for my email list. But they're going to come in, they're going to say, you know, we've got to keep taxes low. We've got to keep government small. We need school choice for parents. Does anybody in here disagree with any of that? I mean, that's preaching to the choir. There are candidates. Now, Mesquite's different from Las Vegas, which is why it's always nice to be up here. In Las Vegas, we've got to run in swing districts or Democrat majority districts. You have to run races differently in Las Vegas than you do in rural Nevada. You cannot be MAGA. You can't be Tea Party. You can't be a hardcore conservative. I mean, you can be those things, but you can't run your campaign like that. But if they're running in a swing district or a Democrat majority district, the real question that you want to ask them, because they'll come in here and they're going to agree with you probably 95, 100% of the issues. We're all in agreement on those issues. What's important, if they're running in a swing district, CD4 is a Democrat majority district. What's important to know is what's their path to victory. The best question you can ask any candidate that comes before you to see whether or not they really know what they're doing and they have a credible path to victory is ask them, how many votes is it going to take for you to win? Now, most of them will probably tell you one more than the other guy. Or 50% plus one. Or, oh, I don't know, around 22,000. And if they give you any of those answers, send them to campaigndoctor.com. They need to sign up for my newsletter list because that's the wrong answer. If they don't give you an exact figure and be able to explain how they got to it, they're not ready. When you ask, if somebody asks, Chuck, how many votes do you need to win? I should be able to immediately say 22,397. 22,397, how did you come up with that? There's a formula, I teach it. They should know it, and if they don't, they need some help. It's not, and part of my training when I tell everybody this is, it's not the best candidate who wins. I hear every election cycle, and I'm sure many of you have heard this said as well. We need to recruit better candidates. No. We have had some great candidates in the past. They ran bad campaigns. It's not the best candidate who wins, it's the best campaign. So if you help me push them into learning how to run a campaign better, like I said, you can be a MAGA, Tea Party, conservative candidate, you just don't wear it on your sleeve, you don't wave a red flag in front of the bull. You have to run a more moderate candidate to get those nonpartisans over to our side. And the other problem that we have, and then we'll get to the fun part. Although you do want me to mention Pigpen, so I'll mention that too. In 2022, I'm sure most of you already know this, we lost a U.S. Senate seat by fewer than 8,000 votes. In that same election, more than 175,000 active registered Republicans did not vote. We lost a U.S. Senate seat by fewer than 8,000 votes, while 175,000 of our fellow Republicans sat home and didn't vote. So if the Republican Party was smart, which I know in this state is an oxymoron, I'm sorry.
Don't blame us.
The candidates, the parties, the clubs, we do not need to register a single additional Republican voter. We already have enough Republican voters registered. Our problem is we haven't gotten them to the polls. As much as I hate ballot harvesting and opposed it, same with automatic mail-in ballots, that's the rule now. That's the law. There's a lot of laws that have been passed that I think all of us don't like. But it is the law, and that's the game that we have to play. We have got to do a better job of getting those 175,000 Republicans to the polls, which I think was the biggest mistake the Republican Party made with this dumb primary caucus mess that they created. They should have used that primary as like a preseason game to practice getting out the vote, getting people to vote by mail, getting people to vote early. The RNC, the Republican National Committee, has a whole program called Bank Your Vote. We should have used last Tuesday to practice, and we didn't do it. So now we're going to wind up going into the primary. Same with election integrity, election security. We want to check, poll watching and that sort of thing. Well, the time to be doing that was last Tuesday night at the polls to see if everything was working okay. And if it didn't work, something wasn't working correctly, then we go to the primary in June and we fix it. We try to adjust and see what happens in June, work all the bugs out so when the Super Bowl of politics hits next November, when it's time to finally, what's the saying, FJB? I don't know what that stands for. Is anybody? When it's time to kick Biden to the curb, not just Biden, but Kamala. Let me go put all the Democrats. How many of you in here think that Joe Biden is going to actually end up being the nominee for the Democrats?
No.
Wow.
I think he might.
Wow, he might. I mean, I agree with you. I honestly don't think, until that report came out last week, and that press conference that he did, I thought, okay, yeah, he's going to be the nominee. Oh, man. The jokes that they made about him afterwards were just wonderful. The memes on social media, I was loving every minute of it. So, yeah, that's, we need to be ready in November. We've got to turn out Republican voters who didn't vote, haven't voted in the past, and you can't wait until after next Labor Day to start reaching out to those folks. The time for the clubs and the county parties and the state party to reach out to those non-voting Republicans is now. We gotta find out why didn't you vote? And a lot of them are gonna tell you. They think their vote's just gonna be stolen, that it's a waste of time to vote. And we've gotta stop that. And that brings me to the pig pen project. In 2020, after the 2020 election, the party and the Trump campaign and other people all put out this, the election was stolen, there's voting fraud. We have 130,000 pieces of evidence. They didn't. They don't. And if they say they do, challenge them to show us the 130,000 pieces of evidence. They've never released it publicly because they didn't do their homework. They didn't do their work. So you can't simply say, oh, Bill Smith moved out of state, therefore he was voting illegally. Not necessarily true. When they made that accusation, the first people that screamed when their names were put out there were military personnel stationed out of state. They were furious because the party says there's 15,000 people moved out of state, turned out 15,000 were in the military that got absentee ballots. There are people, kids in college, legally eligible to vote. They've got a mailing address at Hillsdale College. That's about the only conservative college I think right now. Is that, I got that one right? They claimed that people died, that dead people voted. When we checked into it, turned out, no. The voter who died was Bob Smith Sr., but Bob Smith Jr. still lives at the same address and was still legally eligible to vote. So they just didn't do their homework. And I got so frustrated a year ago. Actually, this happened, Annie went with us on our annual Conserva cruise. We took a Carnival cruise to Mexico for 7 days. And the idea, somebody sent me the idea while we were on board the cruise ship, and we all started talking politics, naturally. And I said, we need to clean up the voting rolls. If there's going to be automatic ballots automatically mailed, we need to make sure that the voter list is as clean as possible so that none of these ballots are floating around in stacks in apartment complexes and that thing. Now, the county election department does a pretty good job within the law to remove people who have moved out of state permanently but did not change their voter registration. But it's easy for a lot of people to slip through the cracks. We had a young girl, my daughter's age, who lived with us that summer, who registered to vote. It's okay. Take it if it's Joe Biden. Otherwise they'll forget to call you back. She registered to vote in the summer of 2020 when she turned 18. She moved out a few months later. We haven't seen or heard from her since then. But her ballot and election mail kept coming to our house. Now, what I should have done, what everybody is supposed to do, is to write on there, does not live here anymore, and return it to the post office. The post office would send it to the election department. The election department would move them from active to inactive so that they wouldn't be automatically mailed a ballot. But I'm like most people, we got the ballot, we didn't vote it, we threw it away. I didn't throw this one away because I wanted to go to the election department and prove that this actually happens, which is how this pig pen project actually got kicked off. I said, look, here's how you're missing voters. We worked with the election department. They're thrilled to be working with us because we are finding voters that they are missing. Since we started really actively going out, we've got boots on the ground. We are able to check the data. We find red flags, anomalies. It's suspicious voters that probably have moved out of state and don't live here anymore and should be removed. What you have to do is you have to physically go to their home and ask the resident or current homeowner, hey, does Bill Smith still live here? And you say, no, they moved out 2 years ago. Oh, great. The election department's still showing them living here at the address. Would you sign this form attesting that you're the homeowner, current resident, and we'll submit it to the election department and they'll take them off the voter rolls. And if you sign the form, we submit it to the election department and they come off the active voter rolls. We've gotten almost 2,000 people removed since we started last fall that the election department missed. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm just look to the side, the pissy or something, say, no, I don't want to sign that.
Say again?
So the homeowner gets pissy and says, I don't want to sign that.
It rarely happens, fortunately, but some of them refuse to sign it. And there's another way of addressing that we are doing. it gets kind of in the nitty gritty here, but the election department sends out a postcard before every general election, and if the card comes back, they move them to inactive. There's a second postcard. If we suspect that you've moved, and the homeowner wouldn't sign the form, but we still suspect that we moved, we report that to the election department. They send them a different postcard. And if you don't return it within 30 days or 45 days, then they move you from active to inactive. So these are all the things that the party should have been doing and looking into so they understood how to clean up the voter files. They never did. They just rather get the press attention and calling for election fraud and stealing elections. And it's killing Republicans because our own people are staying home. And we've got to get them out. We can win. I'm an eternal optimist. I will tell you the 6 candidates the governor has endorsed for the assembly and the 2 that he's endorsed for the state senate already are top quality candidates. This is the best crop of candidates I've seen in over 25 years. But in order to win, they're all in swing districts. In order to win, we've got to win over the nonpartisans. We've got to get 55% or more of the nonpartisan vote and get some Republicans who haven't been voting to turn out. So that's something that you all can do in here. It'll make the biggest difference in the world. If you get those, if all 6, we run the table, all 6, and there's a 7th one they're still waiting on. The governor hasn't made a decision on yet, but there's actually 7 of these assembly seats. If we ran the table and picked up all 7 of them, we'd be at a 21-21 tie, and the Democrats would have to share control with us, like in 1994, 1984, or 94, 90. There was a 21-21 tie, not terribly long ago. And now the second tier of candidates, there are at least 3 in Las Vegas area. Really dynamite candidates. They're in a little bit more difficult district than the top tier candidates. But if things break our way, we could end up in the majority. This cycle, I mean, it's a long shot, but it's possible we could actually end up in the majority in the assembly, and how wonderful would that be? So, all right, let's get to the fun. Would somebody though explain to me Valentine's Day? Who came up with the Valentine's Day? Because the initials for Valentine's Day is supposed to be all about love. It's VD, and I'm not sure that's what they intended on this. But Annie, tell me, what are we doing? How with couples for the fun?
So we have 3 couples that have